Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Divided, Survived, and Thriving. It's a candid discussion, turning the painful process of divorce into a positive force in your life. During these conversations, I will be talking to survivors of divorce who are willing to share their stories with you and how they overcame their battle scars to achieve peace and purpose in their lives. And my first guest is Jodi Mallow, who is a Positive Waves coach. Jodi, I'd love you to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, thanks, Laila. So I'm Jodi Mallow, sometimes known as Jodi Mallow Mas as well. I am a positive transformation coach, and I have Positive Waves Coaching is the name of my business, and I help guide people into a more positive outlook on life. And I think it's going to be really fun talking about how I did that through a divorce.
Exactly. I think we all need to know that, and we all can have some takeaway from that. Staying positive during your divorce, as we all know, is not the easiest thing at all. And through all those challenges, we are tested and trialed all the time. So I have a set of questions because I thought it would be easier to just navigate through this conversation, and also so that you guys can get the best out of this. However, we are women and we like to go off on tangents. And we like to chat a lot.
Right.
So we might go off on little tangents, but hopefully it's all helpful and beneficial to you guys. So my first question to you, Jodi, is what are some of the things that you wish you knew while you were going through your divorce that you know now?
Right,
looking
that's
back.
Great. looking in the rearview mirror, right? So for my personal experience is really one of the things is that I feel like I just gave in too soon. Like I really wanted it to be over with. I didn't want to deal with anything anymore. So it's like I just walked away and really didn't. I lived in Michigan, so it's a 50-50 state. So I really just walked away from everything. And I was like, I wasn't working at the time. I mean, I had my own business, but I wasn't working that much. And so I left alimony on the table. I left all of that. So I left any financial support on the table. I just walked away. And so I think I gave up too soon. And one of the other things that I think I did is that I didn't get anything in writing. So for example, my ex made a promise to me, because I emptied out most of my bank accounts for the situations we got into. We had gambling debt. So I covered a lot of things while I was trying to not get a divorce, right? I was bailing us out of a lot of situations, emptying my 401k, emptying a lot of those things that would have been good for me when I left. And so my ex promised me that he would make monthly restitution to me for a year, and I didn't get it in writing.
Right.
So it was a battle. I mean, I did stick with it, and it took over 6 years for him to pay me back. I was relentless. I'm like, there is no way he's getting away with this. Like, I am going to. But
good on you.
But it was me having to deal with that. I should never have done that. I should have had it in writing. I could have taken it to the court system and just been like, he's not keeping his promise. They would have garnished his wages, and then we could have moved forward. Instead, it was me making the phone call, doing all of our old patterns, me being the mommy, that kind of thing. Like.
So do you think that, circling back to the point where you said that you just kind of gave up and walked away, was it because it was so difficult to be the mommy in the relationship and do all that you said, I can't, I'd rather just walk away and not have any of this and just clean, because I find that often actually with my clients, there's quite a few of them, and I get it because we've all been there where you're just like, this is too much for me. I don't have any more energy left. I have been momming the situation for so long. I have no more energy left.
Right. So it takes such an emotional toll that I didn't have the wherewithal to do all the logistics that were going to be involved with that as well. And I wasn't getting legal representation.
Right, which makes it difficult.
Right. Well, I waited till, and we might talk about this, but I waited till my children were older because I did not want to deal with child custody with him.
Right.
And so I waited. I'm like, I knew I could just handle. He didn't contest anything, so that wasn't it. He wasn't even involved. It was just like I had to handle everything, like I had previously. And I was like, I just want this over.
A continuation of your marriage into
I
the divorce.
I wanted to be on my own program. I'm like, I just want this in my past, and I want to move forward. And it seemed like if I cut the tie and just put it in the past, it was easier than entangling, even though I still had to call for that bit of money that I didn't get in writing.
Right.
Which I created that for myself.
Right. Well, that makes sense. So this is often the case, and I get it, because you're so weak and tired and you're just like, I can't deal with this anymore. So that's really good advice, though, for some people who are going through it, who feel like, you know what, it's just better to walk away. Well, sometimes it's really not better to walk away in certain cases. And
I think having someone like you would have been really beneficial for me.
Well,
Someone
nice
just, it's true though, because
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for legal representation. I had a therapist, but really somebody that could have just coached me through some of the aspects of it for me to talk to and say, hey, you can do this.
Right.
It's not going to be as difficult as you think. Like, let's just get this in.
Baby
just,
steps.
Yeah, little steps, in which I just couldn't do that for myself at the time.
This is true, and I get that, and I understand that. And in fact, also, you didn't have a lawyer involved, which a lot of people do, and there's twofold with it, which I think obviously they're needed. We have no idea about the whole legal ramifications of things, and it's a really scary territory to be in. However, it's also scary to listen to them, because it doesn't make it easy when they're telling you to do things, because it kind of goes against your grain sometimes, and you need that little, I feel my gut, I feel my instincts, I know what I want to do, but at the same time, I also have to understand what I can get out of this.
Right. Well, your lawyer, in my opinion, is like just getting you the most bang for the buck, and they're all of that aspect. So I really needed guidance besides my therapist, who was great. I loved having my therapist, but somebody that really knew how to navigate the muddy waters of divorce and like the emotional side of it, plus like steer me in the right direction. If legal, the only reason I didn't have legal is we did not have a bunch of assets, and my children were older, so I'm like, there's really no reason for me to pay an attorney for all of this,
which I agree 100%.
I just chose not to do that at the time.
Okay. Well, I mean, those are really two good points, honestly. I think that it's helpful for a lot of people, and which actually brings me around to having said all that, and we know that where you were at with your ex-husband, but what were your feelings around divorce?
Oh, I had a stigma. So, I'm a in it to win it kind of girl. So I made a commitment. I really, both of our grandparents had been married over 50 years. Right. So for me, I really had a goal of getting married and having that longevity, that I would be married for a long time. And we both had said that when we married. So I thought it was a mutual goal that we had.
Forever.
Forever, right? Really, I did. And I felt like I failed. Like this was a goal I'd set for myself. I met this person. So the fact that I was going to have to get a divorce meant that I was just like part of the statistics. I had failed at something that I really was trying so hard to be good at. Just a really feeling of failure.
Right.
Like I couldn't make it happen. And so that was, for me, that was really tough moving through it and saying like, is it okay that I'm like,
So do you think that's part of the reason why you waited so long? Because you knew that the relationship was over. I from what you've said before, he definitely, the trust factor wasn't there. There was a gambling issue, from what I heard. So is that part of the reason why you waited?
I think so. I think it took me a while to get my own individual therapist. And honestly, if anybody ever asked me, I would say I think couples therapy has a place after you've done your individual therapy. Right. I think people go to couples therapy right away, and it's like it's so convoluted because you haven't worked on you yet. Right. And so when I really got because we tried couples therapy for a long time, so I kept trying to work on this, and it's when I got my own therapist is when everything shifted for me. Right. I knew that because I started working on me specifically, dealing with everything that I was dealing with, not things I was pushing under the rug because I just wanted to have this happy life. And my ex definitely moved in cycles. So I would say 4 times out of the year, everything would go awry. So we'd have all this good time, much like a battered person, really. It's like everything would be really, really good and rosy, and then out of the blue, it'd be like, bam, I'd get hit. And then I would forget about it and be like, oh, it's getting better again, and everything's okay. And then I give it out, and then I'm like, okay, how long am I going to let this cycle? And my therapist made me write things down.
That's
She was like,
important.
you have to write down, and I'm a positive person, so I always look at like the positive side of it. She's
Right.
like, you have to start writing down these negative things. And I'm like, and so even though I'm a positive person, my therapist said, you have to start writing down the negative things.
Right. So that's really interesting that you're saying that, because we tend to forget, obviously, because we want to, and I see that a lot. And I always say, much like going through the divorce, you have to write down everything that you're feeling, write down all the things that he says or she says, and just keep a repository of it all, right? So that when you're starting to think or question yourself, or am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? You've really got something to look at, because our memory doesn't always bring that up again.
Right.
So that's a really great technique, by the way.
It was her that told me to do it. It was really difficult to do. And the other aspect of it was that I didn't realize how many little things were happening. I kept thinking it was these big things that were really the big blow up seemed like there were so many little warning signs that I was not paying attention to, because I was busy with my children, I was busy with my life, I was busy doing everything. So that really helped. The black and white really helped me see that. And honestly, I kept that after my divorce. I would say good maybe 3.5 years, because anytime I would get a little nostalgic or get a little like, oh, you know, especially when it came to like our all of our rituals, all of the things that you have built, you know, when Christmas came around, anything that we had done together as a family, I would get a little nostalgic. I would pull that out to remind myself of what the reality, not this little picture that I had painted in my head, but what the reality was.
Well, we always glorify what we don't have at the moment, right? It's always the case, and it's so true. And you do need those reminders, and sometimes to help you through it as well, and move on. It's like it's a moving on technique as well. So that's great. And in fact, that's really good advice as well when people are, I mean, oftentimes I get a lot of people coming to me and saying, you know, that whole, should I stay, should I go? You know, I don't know what to do. And, you know, what about my kids? And what about this? And they're thinking about so many other things, but actually about what's happening to them.
Right.
So they're thinking about
that's so
right
true.
about like everything else, their children, the finances, the this, but they're like, I'm like, well, what about what's happening inside of you, and like what's going on with you, and what is that person making you feel?
Right.
So by writing all those down, it's like actually, like, and I always say this when you have children, I'm like, what would advice you give to your daughter or your son? Have a relationship, and they're in a relationship where the person's not treating them well, or they're not being respected, or things are being said to them. I mean, obviously you're going to intervene and you're going to say something, right? So why wouldn't you say it to yourself?
I know, isn't it?
Because we don't
do that. And you know, I waited till my boys were older, because we had this transition in our life. We moved when my oldest was 9, and so we made a big move, and it kind of shifted our life for a little while, and things seemed pretty rosy. And actually, gambling wasn't part of one of my husband's addictions at the time. It was where we moved to. Gambling became, he had access to
his outlet.
Right. And so all of a sudden, this was a whole new thing. And it just led to many other addictive behaviors, which just crumbled our world. But my boys, like, they were moving into these teenage years. And I'm like, I either needed to pull that trigger in my mind ahead of time, or I was like, you know, I'm not sure what to do right now. Plus, during my divorce, we went through a major, like, recession. It was, like, terrible.
Yeah,
it was, like,
I mean, that doesn't make it easy.
It was 2008 time frame. Everything was crumbling. My ex had taken a job in North Carolina, so he was away. I was raising my youngest. My oldest went off after school. So we were kind of going through all this stuff, and I started thinking, that's when I got my own therapist, and I knew it was moving. I actually tried, it's called, I forget what kind of separation it's called, but we lived together.
Right.
And so it's called like a living separation, because she knew I really didn't want a divorce. I was really trying to
hold it together,
right? So my ex-husband and I had so much in common, and we liked a lot of the same things, and we had great chemistry, which I think kept us together. I mean, I was married to him for 22 years, so
wow,
chemistry kept us together for quite a bit of it. You know, you have that chemistry, you're like, hey.
Hard
which
to
I have none of that with him now, but I did at the time.
It's very hard to let go of that.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to let go of chemistry. So I just was going through all of those motions and being like, okay, there's a puppy. We didn't bring her into I wanted to pick her up, just so you people know, but she's distracting because she's so super cute.
I think we're going to pause it right there for 1 second. Hi, we're back. Dog incident. So, Jodi, let's circle back on your separation agreement.
Separation agreement, right. And what I found interesting about it is basically it was a contract. So we stayed living together, but for 3 months, we had to come up with items for both of us that we needed from each other to make our life, make us more cohesive, make us a good union. And so we listed those down, and within 3 weeks, my ex
threw it out the door?
Done. He was done. And I was like, well, there it is. I mean, right there, he couldn't even, we're talking about a marriage, he couldn't even keep that 3-month contract. So it's like, the writing's on the wall.
Right.
It's time.
It's almost like another, it's solidified again.
So I just started, I always had the hope, even during this process of me starting to say, we're going to start transitioning. When he came back from North Carolina, I actually had him, we lived apart. He didn't come back to the home. And so we had a full year of living separately. And I was still always hopeful that we would work it out. But as I was working on myself during that time, I knew we weren't going to be able to work it out. So,
right.
Yeah. So then I just started, just told him it was time. I was going to start the proceedings.
Which is always a difficult decision to make. And that kind of leads me to our last point in all of this, and speaking to you, and I know what you do, and I think you're amazing, and you are really positive.
Thank you.
You do put a positive spin on everything. I know I call Jodi when I need some positivity in my life, and I'm kind of steering in a different way, and she reminds me of certain things. So tell me about, maybe, was that an inspiration to you of what you've gone through, how you went through it, how you helped your children through it all, and where you are today?
Right. Well, my children were older, but it was a major transition. They were transitioning into adulthood, right?
Which is major transition.
Right, major transition. And for me, all of my positivity training has to do around resilience. And so for me, it was resilience. Like how quick can I go from a post-traumatic stress situation into post-traumatic growth?
Right.
How quickly can I move ahead? Not ignoring, not rose-colored glasses. I don't do any of that stuff.
No.
I don't pretend. I mean, I guess I did in my marriage a little bit, but that's a whole different situation.
Right.
But really, it was about seeing my kids go through this transition, and I'm like, how can I help myself and them transition through this? So that's why I always do positive transformation, positive transition. And I think their age bracket, I'm really finding that I work with quite a few mid-20s to mid-30-year-old women, especially, I think because of a role model as a woman myself, being a few years older than them.
They're attracted to you?
Just a few.
Mentorship
yes,
as well?
Mentorship, right?
For sure.
Just because they're going through such major transitions in that part of their life.
Yeah.
And so for me, with the positive transformation and coaching through that and mentoring through it, my boys were a lot of a test case on it,
right.
And for myself too. So what can I do to make myself, what rituals can I put into place that will get me through this and make me feel better and move me forward? So
that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much like, it's why I do what I do too.
Right.
It's the trial and error. And when you go through something so transformational, you figure it out, and you want to help other people through that. And I think that's fantastic. So tell me, basically, if you guys have any other questions for Jodi, where can they find you?
Well, I think this is being aired on Instagram, so I'm Positive Waves Coach on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM. Feel free to follow me. That'd be awesome. If you want to talk privately, I do a complimentary consulting, which you can book on my website, which is positivewavescoach.com. So you can book through there if you want to, or just get hold of me on Instagram, and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, this has been awesome. I love it. So if you guys need to ask me any more questions, you can find me on my Instagram page, where you're looking at this right now, the Split Coach, and you can DM me or message me or whatever, and you can also book me on a complimentary session on my website, thesplitcoach.com. Okay, it's been great conversation.
Thank
so
you.
insightful.
It's always a great conversation.
I know. We can always chat. We can go on forever. Next time we'll do another round. All right, guys. Bye.